Hey, everybody. We're just seeing the numbers rolling in, so we'll give everyone a minute and then we'll start. Preston, what's the weather like where you are?
Oh, you know what? I'm not in Miami today. I'm in Pittsburgh, but it's kind of, it's not 9 degrees Fahrenheit right now. It's like
It's good.
50. So it's quite,
Okay.
spring is in the air.
Spring is springing. Good.
What about in Cyprus?
Well, it's in Cyprus, it's cloudy, but it's getting warm and humid already. So I'm like, wow, summer's about to begin.
Oh, we should ask people if you want to tell us where you're joining us from, you should be able to add it in the comments. Chris, I'm in Aspinwall, so wherever you are in Pittsburgh, hello. Bonjour from Montreal, great. Malaysia, love it. Seattle, I'm from Seattle, love Seattle. Similar weather to Pittsburgh. Cambridge, Mexico, Brighton, Colorado, love Colorado, love all these places.
I love this
Lux
bit.
Luxembourg, Dubai, London. Jocelyn, we're in California, love California. Palm Beach Gardens, oof, very nice. Kuala
Yeah.
Lumpur, this is great. Vietnam. Saudi Arabia, Belgium, Romania. Incredible.
Wow. What an international bunch. Thanks, everyone, for joining. Right, we'll begin. So welcome, I'm Electra. I am the Chief Legal Officer here at Law Insider, and today I'm joined by Preston Clark, President at Law Insider and CEO at SimpleDocs. Preston, it's great to have you here today. Okay, so we've all heard the buzz. AI is transforming the way we work in legal. But today it's about cutting through the noise because we don't very often hear about how we can actually put this into practice, how we can put this incredible tool to play when it comes to legal. So today is about looking at practical ways of making AI work for you, and particularly in terms of helping you streamline your contract negotiations. And AI, and I was talking about this on LinkedIn a lot this week, but basically I think that there's a lot of emphasis on accuracy when it comes to AI, and we're doing the very lawyerly thing of looking at how good this is from a quality perspective. But actually, the thing that AI really gives us, the commercial advantage, is speed. So we want to get really good at this. We want to become power users when it comes to AI in areas where it can really help us accelerate the way we work, because that's really what's going to differentiate us as lawyers going forward. So I'm really happy to be able to provide you with very practical hands-on examples of how you can do that. Before we jump in, I just wanted to talk about some housekeeping. Basically, this session is being recorded and we'll share the recording with you afterwards. If you have any questions, please feel free to drop them below in the chat. We might stop and do some Q&A in the middle of the presentation. Otherwise, at the end, we'll try and answer as many questions as possible. And of course, if you've got questions after the session that you wish you'd asked, feel free to reach out to us and we will try to get you an answer. Yes, if you are having any technical issues, please let us know. We had a few issues last time, so just let us know and we'll try and help you. Just message us in the chat. Okay, so let's start. Slow contracts. When we talk about slow contracts, we're really talking about business delays. And I kind of can't emphasize this more, because often legal may feel like a siloed team within an organization, but actually contracts are an enormously important tool. So the longer it takes to close a deal, the longer it takes to recognize revenue, onboard new customers, and get things moving. So really, there's a commercial problem when contracts are slow, and that's why we have to emphasize the solution to this, because it goes to the bottom line. And here are some numbers that might surprise you. So contracts take 20 to 30% longer than they should because of inefficient review processes. So this is not really legal issues that we're dealing with. It's just the process is inefficient. 9% of companies' annual revenue is lost due to contract mismanagement. Legal review is the #1 cause of contract delays, often adding weeks to deal cycles. Now, I just want to caveat this. Legal review, we often lump in various parts of the negotiation process into legal review. And you may not own all of these processes or all of these elements of the workflow, but still the business looks at it as a legal review workflow. And so it kind of sits with us to solve the problems that underpin those delays. And finally, 81% of organizations struggle with contract visibility. So there's, of course, missed opportunities and compliance risks when you don't know what's in your contracts, how they're being negotiated, consistency around negotiation and what goes into your agreement. So the reason I'm showing you this is to emphasize again that contract and delays when it comes to contracts are a business problem and not a legal problem. And so as a lawyer, your objective, particularly in an in-house environment, or if you have clients that you're working for in organizations, your purpose is to drive business. It's to become a commercial enabler. And so when you think about it like that, and you really look at the reason as to why you need to be looking at your processes, it kind of feels more important because the things that you're doing are impacting your business, not just your legal processes. Okay, Preston, I'm going to hand this over to you now, where AI can help, because I know that you've been looking into this a lot lately. So I'm going to hand this bit over to you.
Great. Thanks, Electra. So I think that this framework is familiar to all of you. I know we have a very global group here with us today, and so some of you are thinking about the ways AI can be brought into your practice, whether you're in-house or private. And others of you are at the beginning stages. And so I want to introduce this framework. Today, we are going to be talking about how to implement tools like this. And so it will get into a very practical application, but I do think it's important and helpful to talk about the ways that our contract lifecycle, our contract workflows can benefit from artificial intelligence. And so let me talk through this at the high level, and then of course we'll be sharing examples as we go. Drafting, lawinsider.com has been a drafting aid for over a decade. And we wake up now every day watching as behaviors in all of you change. Historically, you've used tools like Law Insider to source sample languages. Very few of you, if any of you, start with a blank piece of paper when you draft a contract for a client. You're starting with a template that Electra has given you. You're starting with Practical Law. You're starting with Law Insider. You're starting with something that an associate or a partner down the hall gave you. In the world of AI, I don't know if any of you will admit to this or not, but I guarantee some of you, a meaningful percentage of you perhaps, are already using ChatGPT or some other tool to start your drafting process, maybe to ask for a clause. I need a mutual indemnification clause, whatever it may be. And so we're seeing the accelerated use case of drafting using AI. And of course, there are products that sit on top of AI. So it's not just ChatGPT, but of course, we see a massive opportunity to leverage AI for drafting. And we can debate both ideologically as a former in-house attorney myself. I know that we studied law, we studied contracts, we've been drafting for a long time. The idea of handing over drafting to AI sounds scary, but many of you have been handing it over to Law Insider for 10 plus years. So we know augmented tools have always been there. And now this is just a new one that we're going to learn how to interface with in a way that creates a quality, consistent output. So AI is obviously a huge drafting tool. Review, this is no surprise. There's SimpleDocs, there's Harvey, there's Spellbook, there's all of these tools out there that can accelerate review. And again, this is an area where we're trained as lawyers to process massive amounts of complex information, and we take a lot of pride in it. Who better than us to synthesize 20 pages of a document? Well, turns out AI better than us, and not better because the first version is going to be higher quality, but because you reading one more cloud service agreement this week, clause by clause, cannot possibly be the best use of your time. Now, The idea here is not that we're going on cruise control and we'll look at this, we'll talk about this and say, oh, AI is going to do all the work for me. And I'm not really, I'm just sort of shuffling paper now in between the AI and the business team. And no, that's not it either. We got to keep our hands on the steering wheel, to use sort of an autonomous driving analogy. But the review process is obviously being revolutionized in a huge way. And I suspect that many of you are already down this path. Within your practice. Approval, execution. This is candidly less interesting, but equally important when we talk about time to signature. When Electra talks about we need to get through things faster, we need to get to yes faster, we need to move on to the next task so that we can get back to other work. The approval and execution comes in, and I'm going to show you today a really cool application of approval and execution using the oneNDA template, just as a visual or as a experiential. And so I will preface this by saying I'm going to invite all of you or some of you to experience what it looks like to use AI and automation tools to get a standard document like oneNDA through to signature faster. And again, these are things that are supported by AI, they're augmented by AI, but ultimately what we're trying to do is get to the finish line. So we talked about negotiation. Obviously, that's a big part of it. More consistency. I talk to partners of law firms. I talk to in-house lawyers all the time, helping them implement AI in their negotiation process. Electra, this won't surprise you. It won't surprise any of you on here as well. I'll hold up 2 agreements that they've sent to me, and I've said, hey, I noticed this one was redlined differently from this one. Can you tell me the business circumstances and conditions? Because I'm trying to codify it. I'm not teaching them how to review. I'm trying to turn what they do into codified AI rules. And they'll look at it and they'll sort of look up at the sky and they'll say, oh, I am not sure. I think I was just sort of feeling generous that day. Well, I'm not naming any names here, but you have all done that. You have all woken up and felt differently about how you're negotiating an agreement. You do this at scale. Maybe you have the discretion where you feel really good. Do you want your junior most associate using the same level of discretion? Because if all you've given them is, an Excel file with a bunch of rules, they're going to ignore some of them. And so the idea is that AI can augment or can, from a compliance perspective, enforce a level. Now, you can, of course, override those rules and you can decide to ignore things. But I think that the idea of sort of AI as a fallback or AI as a guide is much better than a document that we can either choose to look at or not. We'll talk about automating contract review today. I sort of alluded to that. I'm going to show you a way to do that. Risk and compliance I just mentioned. And then, data-driven decision making. When we start operating more consistently, when we start using tools to augment our work, it also plays as sort of a dual benefit, which is now we can look at how many of a certain agreement type we're reviewing, what types of changes we're making to those agreements consistently. These can influence how we communicate with the business. And when the CFO says, why are these deals getting hung up? We can give very explicit answers now. We can move on here from this, Electra, but I want to paint the picture that AI can streamline contracts in an incredible number of ways. And again, I think for most of you, you're well aware of these. So I want to get into the meat. I want to get into sort of showing you what that looks like. But I think at the high level, my hope is that you all are relatively aware of these high level methods or benefits to bringing AI into your contract process.
Yeah, and Preston, I think this brings us nicely to the next slide, which is that, and this is a debate that I see a lot and I hear a lot and I speak to lots of people, and the question is, will AI replace lawyers? And I think you agree, Preston, when I say that it will not replace lawyers, but it will amplify the way they work. And I think that lawyers that understand AI and how it can help them are going to be they're going to have the most advantage. But if you're someone who doesn't want to use AI or doesn't want to learn how to use AI, I think eventually we'll be forced to do so, because just as accountants back in the day, when they didn't use Excel or Xero or one of these tools, that was the norm. And then all of a sudden these tools came to play. And now if you hear that your accountant is adding things up manually, you're going to think they're negligent, which goes.
Oh, and I'm sorry. Electra and I have this ongoing debate. And so let me just interject it quickly because I'd love to hear from the group. The ongoing debate is that I believe, perhaps incorrectly, that quality being consistent, if not better, all lawyers want to do their work faster, meaning without even justification, because I think Electra talks a lot about, and to be clear, I agree with, that an incentive to going faster is so that you can get back to more strategic work. But sometimes I acknowledge there isn't more strategic work. There's just more work. And so I would sort of pose this to the group, this idea that do we agree that efficiency and speed, assuming the quality can be maintained, even improved perhaps, is just good unto itself, meaning I don't need to tell you, and now with your extra time, here are the things you can do. It's simply enough to say or ask the question, would you all like to move faster in the work that you are doing? Or is there an aspect of it where you are reluctant to move faster because there's an aspect of the craft or other where you're like, I'm reluctant to accelerate? So I don't know if that is a well-formulated issue or question, but if folks have thoughts or perspectives on that, I think Electra and I would love to resolve this debate with all of you.
Yeah.
Back to you, Electra.
Yeah, no, please, I'd love to hear people's thoughts. So effectively, AI can come in to enhance the way we work or augment the way we work. And as I said, AI playbooks are going to quickly become the norm. Using AI to review a contract, or at least to a first pass, will become something that everybody does in the very near future. Manual reviews will be like accountants using a calculator before Excel. It would be considered negligent if they did that now. And I think the same is about to happen with lawyers. I think we're watching a shift happen, a historical shift in the way we work that we haven't seen since, word processors were invented. So what we should be thinking about is mastering these tools and understanding how to use them, how to implement them in our day-to-day. And just to bring up the first piece of jargon for the day, prompt engineering for lawyers is something that we should be thinking about. But thankfully, it's easy for lawyers because we're natural wordsmiths. What we've done all our careers is think about how to use language and words and how to position things in ways that make things very clear. And actually, prompt engineering is just that. It's talking to the AI, it's instructing it to do certain things. So trying to figure out how to do that to get the outcomes that you want is something that we'll be talking about today. And Preston will be showing you live examples of a little bit later. Before we go into that, prompt engineering, what is it? So prompt engineering is the practice of designing and refining inputs or prompts to get what you want out of an AI model. And just to consider this for a minute, AI doesn't think. Often when I talk to ChatGPT, I say, what do you think? And then I remember that it does not think. It's just responding to my prompts. And it generates outputs based on how you ask the question. So I wish I could throw up a quick poll now to see how many of you do use ChatGPT and how you feel about using it and the way that you engage with it and whether it feels natural. But yeah, if you have anything to add there, please put it in the chat, because I use ChatGPT every single day of my life. Like I'm getting to know how best to interface with it to get what I need from it. And so I think that's just, if we can just narrow that down when it comes to how we engage with tools that are made for legal, that's really what we're getting to here. A well-structured prompt will give you a precise, actionable insight. And when you write poorly written prompts, if you're like, what are the risks in this contract, as just a general question, you may get some really good risks that the AI flags, but ultimately you won't get exactly what you're looking for. So it's important to understand how the AI works so that you can then interact with it in a way that's most meaningful. Preston, I just want to hand over here to you to talk about this, because I know that you've been doing this quite a lot. What's your feeling when it comes to prompt engineering?
I'm looking at all the comments and I'm seeing all of the people that are using Claude and ChatGPT and Copilot and Gemini. And so I just want to acknowledge, I know that, we have several hundred people or, 250 people on the webinar. So I know this isn't everybody. We're not all in the same arc of this journey. So we're going to talk about prompt engineering today as it relates to contract reviews specifically, Electra. That's where I spend most of my time now. There's certainly lots of tips and tricks and best practices that relate to other aspects of law that relate to drafting, et cetera. We're going to talk specifically about review. I saw one of the questions that came in was about, where do we get these playbooks from and how does this work? Well, we're going to show you how to do it. The assumption is that the same way you architect playbooks today in a Google Sheet or in an Excel file, this just gets converted into something that is much more of a prompt. In a few minutes, I'm going to go through a live exercise where I'm going to show you sort of a sample set of rules that is indicative of what many of you may have as your own work product. And we're going to grapple with, Electra, this idea of how we turn these into prompts that can be effectuated or implemented into our workflow and into our work stream. I think that for those of you that are already using ChatGPT and Claude and Gemini and others, it may be working quite well for you in all respects, but you may find it lacking in precision or consistency as it relates to contract review, or you may not feel safe using it for contract review. I'm not sure where you stand on this, but it is amazing, Electra, how what's the word I want to use? I don't want to say difficult, but it is a total mind shift to go from drafting a playbook or a set of rules into doing it for AI. And it's actually easier in AI. It's just a
Yeah.
sort of a shift in our thinking. And so we're going to, of course, talk about that today. And you can go forward with the slide. But I just think that we learn so much every day working with customers who are trying to turn their legacy playbooks into AI prompts. And it's just the best practice or the sort of getting it right has a lot to do with a baseline understanding of what the AI is looking for, matched with a healthy understanding of testing. I think we were so used to using legal tools as a sort of binary where, I think we all had to get good at like Boolean search, for example, and it took us some time. We all got indoctrinated in law school by Lexis and Westlaw and whatever to learn how to search. Well, we're going to need to go through that same level of indoctrination. And we had abundant patience for it when we were all 22 and learning how to do it in law school. But now, sort of wherever we are in our career, we now have to take that same sort of rigor and bring it to this and say, I'm not going to be like, AI doesn't work. It's not giving me what I need. We have to be more in learn mode and iterate mode so that we can turn the AI into a tool rather than into a product that is off the shelf meant to be as good as us. Because it is not. It is not as good as you are reviewing contracts off the shelf.
Yeah. Yes. Okay. So I
Karen,
agree.
please get on with it. Thank you. We will. Let's do it.
Okay, right. So prompts, do's and don'ts. A weak prompt is one that sounds like this. Does this contract have issues? It's too vague because AI might flag random points. Now, just to put this into context, we're going to show you where these prompts will be going, right? There are legal specific AI tools that will enable you to review contracts. Preston mentioned a few earlier. Preston's going to show you one in a minute. But if you're going to put a contract into ChatGPT, which I saw a question here about privacy, I wouldn't be doing that due to the privacy restrictions. If you're using a legal specific tool, all the privacy and security elements should be completely covered, right? So I wouldn't be worried about that. When you're using these AI tools, none of them will be completely off the shelf and work precisely as you need them. They will come with pre-baked playbooks, but you're going to have to think about how you're going to tweak those playbooks to make them suit your own preferences or risk appetites, right? So when you're when you're configuring those playbooks, this is where you're going to be putting these prompts. And as I said, Preston will be showing you in a minute. So this is the comparison of a weak prompt versus a strong prompt. So weak prompt is one that's very high level. Does this contract have issues? And a strong prompt is something that's much more precise, where you're asking it to do certain things. And you can expand on this and make this much more granular. But this is just to illustrate the difference between I wouldn't say a lazy prompt, but one that just relies on the AI to do all the lifting versus one where you're really asking it to do certain things. So what's a playbook? A playbook sets out a company's standard positions, fallback positions, and canned responses sometimes. And usually these are in the form of a spreadsheet. Now, prior to my role here at Law Insider, I used to run a legal consultancy, and it was a legal operations consultancy. And we did this a lot. We used to build playbooks for in-house legal teams. And the idea was exactly what Preston says earlier. These teams needed to get some bandwidth back. And to get the bandwidth back, they wanted to codify their preferred positions so they could, A, delegate some of the contract review work to more junior members of their legal team with a view to ensure that they're not taking risks that they weren't comfortable with because they've codified their preferred positions. And also they were able to make sure that their reviews were consistent. It's not like on Monday I'm feeling full of energy, so I'm, being really strict with my review, but on Friday I just want to go home, so I'm being quite lenient and just letting things slide, because that does happen, whether we like to admit it or not. So having a playbook is not a new concept, but everything was very manual, and it looked a bit like this, which is not very pretty on the eye, but it did do the job to an extent, because again, when you're a human and you're using a playbook to review a contract, it can be very difficult because you want to use your own judgment and your own creativity. And often when you're having to do that by the playbook, it sometimes feel like, the instant doesn't suit, etc. So this is how people used to do playbooks. Having said that, I don't think that every legal team does have a playbook. If you do, that's a great starting point. But if you don't, AI tools can help you codify the positions that you're taking. And can I just say also that when you're going through a process of creating a playbook, whether AI or manual like this, it's a really good opportunity for you to look at your risk appetites and share some of that load with the rest of the business. So it's an opportunity for you to stop and think about what the rule is when it comes to, for example, effects of termination, and then talk to the various teams within the organization to see what the position is and not just take all the risk as legal. So how is an AI playbook different? So a natural language structured set of AI prompts will reflect a company's spreadsheet-based playbook. And basically, you're asking the AI to look at your rules and assess a contract against your rules. What's good about AI, though, is that you don't have to be as prescriptive as you would in a manual spreadsheet-based playbook, because you're not talking to junior lawyers, you're talking to an AI, you're instructing an AI to do certain things, and it can take on more of the lifting. Okay, Preston, I'm now going to hand over to you so that you can actually show what this looks like in practice.
Okay, thank you, Electra. So this is the fun part. I'm going to share my screen. Before I do, someone, I think Kit made the comment. So super secret, super confidential announcement is that in 19 days, Law Insider is going to launch an AI review tool. And it's going to be included in the subscription to Law Insider. And so there will be a lot more content like this. There'll be a lot more educational materials. It's going to be the least expensive AI tool on the market, and I'd argue it's going to be the best because it's based on the Law Insider data set, and it's based on OpenAI. And we may expand past OpenAI and into Claude and others as that quality gets measured differently and as we track it. But this is very exciting news, hopefully for all of you. We're also going to bring some of that interface into the lawinsider.com. So instead of a search experience only, you're going to be able to have a chat or a generate experience. So instead of going into Law Insider thinking I have to search through 500 indemnification clauses, you'll be able to leverage the Law Insider data to generate an indemnification clause that is then ready to take. So we're super excited about this. We've been at work for a very long time to get get ready for this moment. Electra and I are working 18 hours a day, getting ready for the 24th. We'll be announcing this at Legal Week. Don't tell anybody yet because it's not live. It's not on the website. It's nowhere to be found. You were literally the first to hear about it. So I'm going to show you what this looks like. This is developed in partnership with our sister organization, SimpleDocs. So SimpleDocs has a version of this tool that has been in beta for some months, and it was launched publicly recently. It's much more expensive than the one you're going to have access to through Law Insider. So don't go off and buy it. Wait 19 days. I'm going to show you what it looks like to build this. This is what you're here for. I want to show you, irrespective of what tool you use. So you can go use Harvey, you can go use Spellbook, use whatever you want. But I'm going to give you the methodology. But I wanted to start here because this is sexier, this is cooler looking, because I'm going to get into the back end mechanics of how you build an AI playbook. But I want to be clear that we are doing this as sort of platform agnostic. I want to show you how to do this. But the exciting part is that Electra, of course, has done a lot of this work so that if you don't have your own playbook, or if you want to leverage an existing playbook, we have an incredible growing library that Electra is working on literally again around the clock, so that when we do launch on the 24th, there's going to be a whole host of standard playbooks included. But for the purposes today, I'm going to run and show you what it looks like to have a well-structured AI prompt, analyze a document, produce either a red line result or a suggestion. And that's what I'm going to show you. So that is the fun, that is sort of the cool part, but like the educational part, the part that I really, we're here for now, is I'm going to show you how the heck this works. And I literally spend, the majority of my day working with both in-house and law firms who have a set of rules either on behalf of their client or for themselves in the event that the client is, the business for whom they work. And it comes in lots of forms. So Electra showed a format just a moment ago that was a spreadsheet. And so I'm going to show you another form that we get those sometimes. Sometimes we just get these written documents. And so this is a little bit of an eyesore, but this is a lot of reasoning that is being communicated to associates in the firm or on the team about how we manage different things. And so I'll give you an example, term length. So just look at this language. Push back on anything over 5 years. We prefer the term of the NDA to be 2 to 3 years, but if it says 5 or fewer, that's okay. It's all of these things that are very imprecise. Now, the beauty of AI is it's still natural language, but it does need to be declarative, right? And so as we look at this in a moment, so what we do from an implementation perspective is we will take a document like this, or we will take a set of rules in a spreadsheet, and we're going to convert it into a set of rules like this. And so I have a partnership playbook that I'm going to document first. And so I would encourage you to think in these ways also, where you say, here is our current work product. How am I going to get it into an AI tool? And again, it could be LegalOn, it could be Spellbook. I'm not pitching you on anything today. I don't even have anything to sell you for 19 more days. But it's important for you to start thinking about how you take your rules today that may be in this format or in a spreadsheet format and start putting them into rules. So let me give you an example of a well-structured, very precise rule and one that is less so. So we saw above, and sorry, hopefully I'm not creating motion sickness for anyone. We saw above the notion of term. And again, a little bit wishy-washy, just fine to give to an associate so they can use some discretion in this, but also massively imprecise as it relates to an AI prompt. And again, this may be very obvious to all of you, but for some of the more complex issues, more complex than term, there's a bit of nuance here. So let's go and look at term and see what we have. We have now done default term is 2 years, but we accept up to 5. That's it. None of this like 2 to 3, like this is a precise rule now. And what AI is going to do, as we will see in a moment, is it's going to say, if the proposed term is 1 year, what's going to happen? AI is going to redline to 2. If it is 4 years, it's just going to accept it. It's not going to make any comment. And this is not a revelation. This is not, this is not crazy, but it has to be structured in this way. And again, for those of you using Gemini, using ChatGPT in a more open format, a lot of these things are intuitive to you. But what we're asking you to do now is to be a little bit of a product engineer, because you have to think about these things up front, because you are going to build a product with us, with Spellbook, with a Harvey, with whomever, because these are the things that then become codified that are used by the other associates. And so again, you may feel very comfortable navigating this type of language, but I encourage you to go through this methodically so that you can take a document that is very verbose and that is very sort of nuanced and like, and then this, and then this, and then this, and actually figuring out what it looks like in an AI environment. Okay, so defined NDA purpose. Confirm that a clear purpose is written. If no purpose, replace with consideration of a potential business relationship involving a potential partnership. So this is great. The instruction I'm giving it is to redline it, and whether or not the AI, this is sufficient instruction to confirm whether or not the purpose is clear. I might massage this further. If I find that it is producing results that is not triggering a good result, or that it's missing its understanding of clarity. But to start, I'm going to keep it simple and use this basic language. Okay, governing law. Here's a really good one to illustrate the point. Our default venue is Delaware. We also accept New York. Where something other than Delaware or New York is present, replace with Delaware. If the proposed venue is outside the US, replace it with England and Wales, and add the comment, as a matter of policy, we can only accept Delaware, New York, England, Wales as venue. You are now building a product with us for your use, right? Because there's a level of precision in this language that is saying, here are all the fallbacks, here are the scenarios with which we want you to look at alternatives. If the proposed is outside the US, do X. If it's within the US and it's California. So what would happen here? If California is the default, it's going to replace it with Delaware. If it proposes Germany, it's going to replace it with England and Wales. These are the rules that then instruct the AI how to process different agreement types. Okay. Okay, here's one that the AI may be okay with, where you can actually add in not just comments, but instructions to your legal team, right? Because you are building this. Many of you are solos, but some of you, maybe many of you, will be doing this on behalf of your firm. And so the AI has really three purposes: to instruct what to do on the document, make a red line, make a suggestion, to add a comment where needed, and then to leave a note to the reviewer on what else might be done, or how this agreement was arrived, or how this sort of, what is the logic behind this decision. So in this case, if the term is indefinite, escalate to Bob, whoever Bob is, right? But the idea here is, what this is saying is that we don't want you to redline an indefinite term. We want you to make the decision to escalate it. And so this would then, instead of be a red line, it would actually flag it and say, hey, we've identified an NDA that has an indefinite term, and there is no red line for this. So instead, it's going to be highlighted and flagged for the user. So this is the process that we go through, that you all will need to start working through. And Electra is going to do lots of tutorials on how to restructure your rules today. But for many of you, you're probably, I don't want to project this. Some of you have very detailed playbooks. Many of you do not. For the ones that do not, that are using it on a loose document or something in your head, we are going to ask you to go to this next level and start codifying these as sort of I'm documenting it here. Included in the Law Insider launch on the 24th, there will be an AI review, a playbook builder capability that exists not in this format, but actually exists inside the Word add-in. And it is wonderful and it is incredible. And I was just testing it last week. But what this means now is that when I look at each of these rules that I am creating, these then become the items that I am grabbing and putting them into the tool. So I will use one for illustration purposes. Okay, this one is default term. I'll use this one just because we've been using term length. I go back here, I go find my term length. Here it is. And I'm going to say, I'm going to update this. Default term is 2 years, but we accept up to 5. Great. Um, and then I have this other rule, perpetual NDAs are not accepted where present, default to 18 months. Actually, I'm going to change that to 2 years because that is our default. And then I'm going to say, we don't need a comment on this. Or I could modify this. I could say, add comment where red line applied. As a matter of policy, we require a 2-year term length on NDAs. This is yours to do, but this is the structure that we will implement. And so you will go through this, you will have 20 issues, you will have 15, but I encourage you as you use a tool like this that you don't want to start in the tool. You like all software, you don't want to start in the software, you want to start in the documentation. And so in this case, do this work first in whatever format suits you, Excel or other, and arrive at your rules so that you can get to a place where it's more copy and paste than it is iterating and ideating inside a software tool like this. Okay, I'm going to stop share for a moment. I want to jump back into the tool so we can show what this looks like in application. Electra, do we have questions coming in that I should grab, or is it unrelated?
Preston, will this work in English only, or will we be able to support other languages as well?
No, you can do multi-language playbooks.
Thank you.
And multi-language review. The UI, though, is going to remain in English for the foreseeable. So it's going to say chat, review, and playbooks and issues. So the English language interface will remain. That's much harder to make dynamic, but experientially, it can be in any language that you want. Okay, so let's run this. Electra has done the heavy lifting. Thank you, Electra. She has created a oneNDA playbook. Some of you may have seen this before. I'm going to generate it now against an NDA, and then we're going to unpack and analyze how that prompt was created or what it is looking for as sort of an application of how we might think about structuring these AI prompts. Okay, so what it is doing now is it's processing. Electra has 19 rules that govern her oneNDA playbook. And these are configured in a specific fashion for my business. They may be different for yours. And so Electra is not going to tell you how long your confidentiality period should be, but she is going to tell you you should care about confidentiality, and then you can modify the specific variables. She's not going to tell you that England and Wales should be your default governing law, but she will tell you that governing law matters and that you should flag that area and then replace it accordingly. So it looks like that's how long it took to get through. We're 43% compliant, 50%, 57% non-compliant. And we run through this and this is great. So it looks like in this version, it has 6 years as the default term. I know that's a little bit difficult to see, so you'll have to take my word for it. I can expand this and see sort of what the clause is. It's obviously taken me to it. If I apply it now, it's going to immediately redline this. And I can go through and I can accept some. This is saying, hey, the definition of confidential information may be a problem. So we can sort of decide what we want to do. I'm going to go ahead and ignore that one. Marked or identified as an issue. Let's apply. So you can go through discretionarily deciding which of these issues are in fact worth enforcing in this agreement. I'm going to ignore a bunch. I'm going to apply some, and you can see this one says that the AI couldn't apply it, so I can either regenerate it or I can ignore it. Indemnity, we'll make that change. So in real time, within, I'm going through this sort of in painstaking step by step, but you doing this on a daily basis, this may take you a minute and a half to get through. And at the conclusion of this, it looks like AI was able to resolve it on the second run. I now am at 100%. And so I can close this out in instances where comments where you saw me sort of create comment suggestions in one of the prompts when I was inside the backend experience. All of this now can carry over and can be designed for your specific business, designed for your specific negotiation behavior. The beauty now, and this is where I was reading some of the comments when I made sort of the issue of speed. Do you care about speed or not? One of the comments was, well, I do, so long as the speed is helpful, meaning my work product remains high quality. Well, what I would sort of posit to you is not just being methodical about how you build your AI prompts, but being methodical then about how you analyze the results of it, especially as you're getting acquainted to and getting familiar with how this works against the type of agreements that you review. So in this case, I'm going to check and see if I like the changes to definition. I'm going to review how the term was implemented. I'm going to see how it changed the warranty provision. We have some bright line rules around liquidated damages and non-solicitation. Those are pretty clearly redlined out. So this allows you to be an editor of a review, almost like a junior associate who is sending back something before it goes out to the counterparty. And that I think is a really good framing, is that we're not saying you're done, all set, let's send it off. We're saying we think that this is ready to go, or we think it's ready for your final approval. So I think thinking through that lens, that's still dramatic time savings, but it's not meant to be a set it and forget it or complete the review and then move on. So I wanted to show that. Electra, if I have 2 more minutes, there's a couple other features in here that I want to share that relate to how you can use AI outside of a playbook environment. And again, Law Insider is going to have every one of these capabilities available on the 24th. So you can do really bold things that are probably not good ideas, but it's worth thinking about, or at least worth illustrating. This to the left is a mutual non-disclosure agreement. I could do something crazy like, please convert this mutual NDA into a unilateral NDA. And because I've indicated a red line, what it's going to do is it's going to draft, it's going to take the agreement and propose changes that can then be applied globally against the document. That didn't take very long. It looks like it just picked up one. I probably had my cursor somewhere, so just applied it to one section, but I can do it globally for the entire document. So you have the capability to chat and redline directly, which is very powerful. And then, of course, you have the ability to draft directly as well. This is where the integration with Law Insider is going to come in really strong handy, where I can say, please add mutual indemnification provision. And it's going to give me one, and I'll immediately then be able to pull that over wherever the cursor has been highlighted. And of course, again, consistent with the junior associate, I don't expect you to accept this as gospel the same way that you don't with Law Insider today. You copy it, you paste it, you modify it. We've now dropped that in, and now you can modify it. So this is just a faster way to work inside Microsoft Word, leveraging AI. There is one more thing that I want to share that is workflow related, Electra, if you'll allow me. But to close out the word add-in portion of the demo, what I would say is that our goal with you is to give you a starting place with lots of playbooks that have been expert developed, but then teach you and give you the tools to create your own playbooks. That is the punchline. That is the takeaway of today. And that's going to take you some time to get excellent at. But because the implications are so high, or because the stakes are high, meaning you are going to implement a playbook and push it out to the rest of your firm or to the rest of your junior associates within your team, you doing this excellently and testing it before you push it out is more important than you just using Gemini by yourself for your own work product. So there's a level of precision here and a level of iteration that is really important. We also have the ability to send and sign, which is super cool. I'll tell you about this later, but you can, once you've finished and there's a meeting of the minds, you can move this directly into signature, which we'll talk about on a later date. So I want to pause there, see if there's any other questions. But the goal is how you build playbooks is really important. Being precise is really important. You can't get to precision without lots of testing. And in order to put you in a position to test, we have to teach you the iterative process of what types of changes you ought to make in order to get to a place that is a better outcome. I'll pause there.
Thanks, Preston. That was great. And I've got some really interesting questions that I'd like us to address. I've been trying to answer some of the questions, but I think some of them it's better for us to talk about. So
Okay.
the first question from Anna, what about unexpected terms? Some customers add terms that I've never seen in such a contract or any document. Are those flagged somehow? So Preston, can you respond to that?
Yeah, so Electra is better at responding this than I am, but when we build a playbook, we think about three things. We think about inclusions, what must be there. We think about omissions, which shouldn't be there. And then we think about the variables that are specific to our organization, jurisdiction, governing law, et cetera. For that middle one, for omissions, this is either driven by specific AI instructions that say, we don't accept non-solicitation, we don't accept liquidated damages, we don't accept auto-renew. But that can be onerous because, of course, there can be the really sort of surreptitious inclusion of something that has nothing to do with the document itself that we could have never foreseen someone to be so bold as to include. And this is where the Law Insider data set comes in, where we're literally just saying, hey, red flag, there are elements to this agreement type that are incompatible with how a normal employment agreement or MSA or cloud service agreement is structured. So these types of flags, you don't have to think through every possible iteration of what might go wrong. We will do that for you inside the tool.
Yeah, so Anna, we've got an enormous library that tells us what the norm is, and this also answers another question around what would be interesting is to see what, from a number of NDA reviews, for example, what the norms are and whether certain amendments to the playbook should take place. So this is what we call benchmarking, and effectively what we'll be doing is offering you the opportunity to see whether your agreement aligns with what's market standard. So I agree, that would be a really powerful way to negotiate as well, because you can say, this is not just my preference, this is what's market standard, or the thing that you've proposed is not market. And I know that that's quite a contentious thing to say, but if you've got data to back that, it will also allow you to leverage it when you're in a negotiation. Okay. The other question here is, will this handle stakeholder review? So certain provisions need to be approved by risk management or a business unit. Can I create a prompt that would highlight a section and send it to the stakeholder for review with a description of the contract? That's a great idea. We probably won't have it ready for launch, but that workflow automation, I think, Preston, you've got more insight on that.
Yeah. So we want to take all the next steps you need us to. So obviously review is a huge step in the middle, sort of in the middle of the flow, getting to signature. And our ultimate goal is to, help you draft so you can get the first one done, help you initiate so you can get it out to the counterparty. And then when it comes back with red lines, or when the counterparty sends you a third-party document, review faster, and then back to signature, and then repository, and then tracking, and all the things. But obviously for today, the focus is this specific job to be done of how we apply AI to routine contract review.
Cool. Thank you. The next one is, will Law Insider be able to provide playbooks for certain agreements like SaaS, software development? Yes, absolutely, Jerry. That's what I do with most of my time now, is I create playbooks that are going to be a default playbook in the Law Insider application. So you'll be able to either use them as is, or amend them so that you can add additional rules or take away rules. We're also creating playbooks that align with our standards, so oneNDA, one SaaS, one DPA, and they will also come pre-baked within the tool. What other questions do we have here? Such great questions. Would be good to have a hyperlink for... Sorry, I lost that because another message came through. Hyperlink for the various clause definition section references rather than scrolling or otherwise flipping pages. So the tool will point you to the relevant section that it's flagging. kit, so you won't have to do that. And if your AI playbook doesn't include a clause type that's in the contract you are reviewing, how will that be flagged in the contract? So, for example, there is a dispute resolution clause in the contract you're reviewing, but your AI playbook doesn't have any rules for dispute resolution. So, Joanne, this goes back to how we're programming the tool on our end. So not the tool doesn't just rely on the rules that you give it. It also relies on the rules that we tell it to look for. So, for example, make sure that terms are consistent throughout. Make sure that numbering and cross-referencing is consistent throughout. If there are any inconsistencies, flag them. If there's anything that's unusual within the contract that shouldn't be in there or that's overly onerous, even if it's not stated as an explicit rule, flag it. So we're doing that lifting in the back end, Joanne.
Let me grab a couple here quickly. And if I miss some up top, I'm just looking at the two most recent ones. Robert, relative to the chat functionality, that is coming also. May not be March 24th, but soon thereafter. I don't know yet the application as it relates to other business functions doing like a first pass review, but we will have capabilities. Most of the rest of the business is not in Microsoft Word redlining documents. And so we don't want to push everyone into Microsoft Word. We want to push the lawyers there soon in Google Docs. We will be adding that in the coming months. But the idea is there a chat interface that the rest of the business can use to do first pass analysis? And the answer is yes, and it will live on lawinsider.com. So we can tell you more about that later. It won't be ready for March 24th. Michael, the due diligence process is really interesting because the most succinct way that I can respond to that is how do we analyze bulk document sets? 5 documents, it might be MSA, an SLA, a cloud service agreement, or it might be 300 sales agreements for an M&A deal that requires us to make sure that there's no term for convenience clauses looming out there that we're not aware of. This is much more of an upload and analyze and summarize function. It is coming because we have the capability to do it. But of course, that wouldn't be a word add in experience because you don't want to upload 47 documents into Microsoft Word. It's better if you do that at the platform level. So that is coming. It'll probably be here this summer. PDF, same answer, Anna. It's going to be an upload feature because whether or not we're talking about OCRing and actually converting it into something that can be redlined, or if you just want a summary, we've analyzed this PDF. Here are the 5 things that are inconsistent with your playbook. Here's what we recommend you send back so that you could then just basically copy and paste an email to handle it from there. So yeah, that's a good question though.
Awesome.
For due diligence, so I'll be very, oh yeah, Electra has a poll, or Dory has a poll. Let's put it up. So if you would like early access to the AI tool from Law Insider, let us know. Of course you all do. This is just so we know who you are so we can reach out to you. I expect 100% of you to say yes. But yeah, please respond to that. Thanks, Paula. Really appreciate that feedback. Sorry if it took us. I know some of you were like, let's get to it. This is what we wanted to show you, but we wanted to give a build up because I know some of you are still getting oriented to what AI is and what it means for contract review. There was one other thing that I didn't get to, and I shouldn't get to it. I should just let it go, but I can't let it go. We talked about how NDA or how contract automation is augmented by AI, and we focused on review. But we've also turned Electra's oneNDA into its own automation that gets all the way through to signature. And if someone wants to test it, I'm going to post it in the chat. And what this is, it is a form. You don't have to give real information, but it is a mechanism to automate a process. And so I want you to think about it as the next natural step. You go through AI review, you finalize the agreement, we have a meeting of the minds, and now you're like, now what? Now what? I got to upload to DocuSign, or they uploaded to DocuSign. I send it back. I route it to who needs to approve it. Like all of these steps, we also have the ability to encapsulate that into a single workflow so that once you have a meeting of the mind, it will accelerate through to signature. So if you click on that link, you're not really entering into an NDA with Law Insider, put in fake information, but you can experientially go through the process to see what it looks like to get through to signature, because that is also coming next as we work to finish this first phase, which is enabling you to review faster with Law Insider. Thanks, Sarabi. What, Electra, I know we're at time. How do you want to close us out here?
Yeah, just want to say a big thank you to everyone who joined. We will be circulating a recording of this session along with the slides. So if anyone's got any questions after this, or you really wish you'd press that yes button, but you didn't manage to, please let us know after this. And thank you all for joining. It's been great to have you, and it's been so insightful to hear your questions. So thank you to everyone who wrote one. So thanks.
And if you were disappointed with today, either with the content, with the presentation, with what was promised and what was delivered, send me a note, send Electra a note, because we're going to be doing a lot more of these, especially on the topic of AI playbooks for obvious reasons as we prepare to launch this product. And so if you need different content than this, be so bold as to tell us about it. Preston at Law Insider, Electra at Law Insider, let us know what we can do.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone. Take care.